I'm Martin. In some circles, I'm also known as Henk because I happen to be often in groups of people where there's kind of at least 4, 7, or 10 Martins. So yeah, based on which kind of group you are in, I'm either Martin or Henk. And I'm going to talk about my journey over the last 20 years. Makes me feel really old when I say last 20 years. But yeah. As Lee said, I've been bouncing between being a maker, being a manager, being an investor, and now back to being a maker again. Because a couple of months ago, I found myself founding a new company with Edgar, and now we're doing this thing called Eventornado, and we're managing hackathon, or building software that helps people manage hackathons. But that's not the story, right? The story was about me, and me bouncing between being a maker, being a manager, and sometimes also an investor. So let's scroll back 20 years. And I'm from a small town in Estonia called Haapsalu. And I started coding in high school. It didn't really come natural to me. I was never good at math or physics or any of that stuff, but something drew me to the computers. It was kind of always fascinating me. And I just kind of struggled through all of these things. And kind of 20 years ago, the resources online for learning how to code were really, really bad. They're kind of non-existent. So you basically had to steal other people's code and kind of try to figure out how it worked. But I somehow pulled myself through it. And I started building these websites that had a content management system built into it. And back then, it was kind of bleeding edge. And I cornered the market. I built a little monopoly for me. So pretty much like almost every museum in Haapsalu was running on my system, and kind of all of their websites were using my CMS. So that was a nice little niche I carved out for myself. And then a few years later in college, I was co-founder to a startup called Bronn.ee, which was managing online bookings for beauty salons and group trainings and whatnot. And yeah, that's the screenshot of that website. Can you guess when that screenshot was made? Sorry? Well, yeah, kind of. It was 2004 when when we made that startup. But that screenshot on that slide right now, can you guess when that was made? Yesterday. Yep. Does it say yesterday? Okay. Anyhow. It's a funny startup. We had 4 founders and a founding investor. And in the beginning, we had these big plans to grow this thing really, really big. And obviously, not everything went by plan. And I was kind of deeply in maker mode during this journey of Bronn.ee. I was coding. And one of the things that happened to me during college is I quit smoking. And that gave me this huge boost of extra energy. I didn't know where to put it. And I decided it's a good idea to learn how to code in Flash. Most people probably in this room too young to know what Flash even is. But back then it was a really neat thingy. And that also enabled us to have this Bronn software run locally in these company computers. And when the internet went down, and kind of back in 2004, the internet went down quite often, then people didn't lose their calendars, which was super useful. These days, of course, kind of, yeah, nothing to do with Flash, but back then it was useful. Luckily, at least PHP is still here. So kind of one of these really old languages that I learned is still kind of relevant. So out of these 4 founders, one by one, people started leaving the startup because it wasn't really working. We couldn't get too many customers. We ended up having 20. And interestingly enough, this company still has 20 paying customers now, 15 years later. At some point during Pipedrive, I had my first successful exit for this startup. I was the kind of last one, and I gave it away for free to someone that was more willing to handle it. But yeah, it's still around. So fast forward a couple of years, and kind of I was still at Bronn, but kind of it didn't really pay any bills, so I started looking for a job. And I saw this ad in the Estonian daily newspaper that was looking for an internet specialist. And I thought, well, that's me. So went to the job interview, and there was Ragnar Sass. Has been probably mentioned a million times already today, but he was running the internet department at the Estonian daily newspaper back then. And he hired me as this internet specialist. And back then also Martin Tajur, who also became one of the Pipedrive founders later in life, he was working as a designer, and he made kind of the website look from this ugly one to this beautiful one back then. So I went to work, and turned out being an internet specialist meant selling banner ads to the online newspaper. And also turned out that I was really, really bad at it. I, during that time, didn't sell any banners. And one day Ragnar came to me and said, dude, we need to talk. And I was like, oh shit, I'm getting fired. And he said, dude, you're really, really bad as a salesperson. But seems that you're kind of technically adept, so kind of maybe we can transfer you to some better role. And he did, and I started making these dynamic banners where kind of the real estate companies could feed in their listings automatically. It was 2007, the real estate was booming, and everyone was buying up these apartments so fast that they constantly needed to change the banners. So we made it automatic. And Elor, who was there, who could actually sell things, he was selling the banners, I was making them. It was good times being a maker again. So yeah, no more salesperson, Martin. But we didn't last in this newspaper industry very long. Ragnar left, and we all left soon after. And a while later, Ragnar started this company called Kutsu.ee, or UnitedTalks.com. And he invited me to come in, and he invented a role for me, called it the Chief Technical Officer. And it sounded really good, which meant also that I slowly started to become a manager. I had some people that were reporting to me, and I was still kind of making things, but kind of slowly managing more. Although back then I wasn't really kind of reaching out to mentors, trying to learn stuff. I wasn't reading any books about management. So now looking back, I wasn't really managing the people. I was more managing the product, managing the technology. So the kind of the chief title was more in name than in reality. So United Talks was a really nice learning experience. We did many cool things. Ragnar was really good at attracting kind of tens of thousands of people to the site to come and kind of upload the pictures of their dogs and their cats, and kind of, I mean, it was successful for a while for a social network for pets. But then reality came along, and the company kind of closed the doors and let everyone go. So we were unemployed. And we met up with these two guys, Timo and Urmas, who were in this pretty famous Estonian sales consultancy called Vine & Partners. And we had met with them during the United Talks days. They were helping us sell advertisements better, basically. And they said, well, maybe we should come together and build a tool for salespeople that salespeople would actually want to use. And since we were all unemployed and didn't have anything better to do, we said yes. And now looking back, seems like a pretty good decision. And yeah, these are some kind of really old screenshots of the Pipedrive website. I think the black website with these Porsche dashboard things, still kind of one of the coolest CRM websites ever made. And that was made by Tajur again. And when we started Pipedrive, went kind of straight back to maker mode, coding myself, making a task for the first developer we had called Elar, and life was good. Until the company started growing, and I started kind of getting pulled back into this manager mode. The first change was I went from being the CTO to head of support, because people needed support, and kind of I was kind of the guy that could talk to developers, but also talk to people. And I ran support, and I think I did a pretty good job at doing support myself. But then when it came to kind of managing the team and growing the team, that didn't really work out too well. So at some point, we hired Martin Köiva to come in and take that role over from me, and then I transferred into product management. And I gave this kind of scaling a team another shot. Started reading books, started talking to people, kind of tried to look up to people that were good at people management. And I scaled that team from kind of 4 people to 40 by the end of that process. Also, during this time, we had our second kid, and we also had kind of moved to California at some point, where kind of one of the kids was 5, the other one was 2.5, and kind of now when I think back of all of these plane rides, kind of 11 hours across the ocean, kind of straight to San Francisco, with a 2.5-year-old that was kind of puking the entire journey. How did we survive all of that? I have no idea, but somehow we did. And then also looking back, I realized that having these kids made it a lot easier to manage a department of people. Because some people have said, kind of, at some point I developed some sort of a Teflon skin. So any kind of shit that was happening in the office and all kinds of kind of personal trouble that people were having and kind of coming my way to deal with it, none of it kind of affected me at some point anymore, after all of these other kind of journeys with the kids and everything. So more and more, I went into manager mode at Pipedrive. Kind of the years went by. We came back from California, lived in Tallinn for a while, then moved to Lisbon. And I started feeling that I'm burning out. It just wasn't working. And kind of, I wasn't making anything anymore. So the only thing I was making was board slides. And if there's one thing in this life that I hate most, it's making board slides. It's just kind of, if I never have to make any board slides in my life again, I think it will be really good. So yeah, I was kind of running out of energy and burning out. So I had to leave Pipedrive. And beginning of 2019, I left and started this journey where kind of I was resting and investing, or it's also known as retirement, which was really nice. We were living in Portugal. It's a very good place to be retired, kind of enjoying life, spending time with family, and then also investing in a bunch of startups. And at some point, I also did kind of three months at the Techstars Lisbon as entrepreneur in residence. Sounds really kind of fancy. There's a lot of mentoring startups. And I actually loved it. It was really good being an investor and kind of being the boss of my own time. And it was lovely until one day Edgar called and said, dude, kind of we're running all of these hackathons on this platform and kind of we need help. And Edgar was kind of a guy in one of the startups I had invested in a long time ago. And kind of they had already wrapped up the company, but then he was the last one standing, and then kind of suddenly all of these online hackathons started happening in March, and he was kind of managing all of them. He needed technical help. I jumped in, and I realized that, holy shit, it's really fun. I mean, kind of, it was also stressful, but I had to kind of quickly code some solutions and kind of to manage everything happening in the background. And at some point, I was kind of standing at my standing desk and coding and kind of dancing like an idiot. And my kids were asking, like, dude, what's going on? And what happened to you? And I loved it. It was really good doing something again. My code is really, really bad, and they shouldn't ever be allowed to kind of deploy in production. But kind of the tools I was building in the backend, kind of handling some data and doing things, it was a lot of fun, at least. So fast forward a couple of months, and kind of we realized that kind of we had started this new company called Eventornado, and kind of we have this really nice software that is enabling people to run online hackathons, start to finish, really nicely. And when I say we realized that that had happened, kind of that's what I mean. So kind of Edgar and I have a really interesting relationship. We don't kind of talk too much. We just kind of do. So kind of this ratio between kind of talking and doing is a really nice place where kind of we have this 1 half-an-hour meeting every week, and the rest of the time we just work, which is beautiful. Like, I haven't had that kind of ever before in my life. So yeah, I'm a maker now again. So what do you know? That's pretty much it. No lessons, no kind of smart words about kind of life lessons or any of that, but kind of maybe you have some questions.
Thank you, Martin. I really like how one of the kind of, as I mentioned, the legendary guys, been around for 20+ years, has built all sorts of companies. Not really any lessons, no. Just want to make stuff. That's really nice. And I also liked how you said that resting and investing is retirement. That's a really cool thing. Anybody has questions in the meanwhile? No, people are putting on glasses. No, they don't want to ask. I can.
So how can you tell that you're on stage in Estonia?
There's quiet in the room.
Yeah, no questions.
Yes, in case you were confused where you are, right?
Yeah.
But I do have, you talked about you being a leader and working with people and so on, and reading books when you already got smarter, that maybe books can help in getting things done better. Who is the best person you know in people management and why? Or leader, or, you know, working with people.
People that I personally know, or
Pick
kind
any.
of pick any.
Yeah.
I think
I would prefer who you personally know, or you've seen being good with people.
Well, the easy answer is Timo at Pipedrive. Kind of, he was a legendary guy, always kind of managing stuff. Also, kind of Sergei Yanikin at Pipedrive. Kind of, he was one of the guys that came in and kind of, I think he was the first manager that we had, who came in and said, okay, that's the plan. Kind of all of these people will start doing these things, and kind of then he went and started playing tennis in the middle of the day because everything was organized. That was kind of a
very good manager indeed.
Yeah. So and it was a good thing because kind of he didn't jump into code and kind of start doing stuff that kind of managers shouldn't actually be doing. So that was a big lesson for us.
And there actually is one question. Oh wow! It's probably not from an Estonian. What would you do differently going back in time?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't know. Oh, yeah, I do know, actually. So taking care of your body is really, really fucking important. And that was one of the reasons I burnt out at Pipedrive in the end, because I wasn't taking care of my body at all. So, yeah, do sports, and kind of most people that have been on the stage have said something about kind of climbing or kind of doing swimming in icy water and stuff like that. So yeah, all of that stress and nonsense that is happening, it's really easy to just kind of get that bottle of wine and kind of open up Netflix and think that it's helping with your stress. It doesn't help shit. Kind of going to the gym and going running and doing all sorts of other things, kind of that's the only thing that helps. And kind of if you don't want to burn out during tough times, yeah, that's what you need to do. That was also, I think, one of the reasons why Edgar was the last one standing at Guana, is he was kind of constantly going to the gym every day and kind of doing the right things with his body. Yep.
Yeah, so taking care of yourself first, and then you can take care of others.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Thank you so much. We'll wrap up with this, and I'll let you off the stage. Thank you. Give a big applause to Martin.